Hello, welcome to another episode of 8 Stories. I'm Sharon Cawthon, and this is my co-host Jennifer Carter. And on 8 Stories, we bring you enlightening, fun, interesting stories from around the multifamily space or from around the world that may affect the multifamily space. So thank you for joining us today. We're going to take just a moment, though. None of this is possible without our sponsors, so we're going to take just a moment to hear from our sponsor.
The sponsor of this episode is Chadwell Supply, an OG in the multifamily industry. Chadwell Supply is the largest privately owned maintenance and repair supplier, and they deliver orders the next day from local warehouses across the United States. To find out how Chadwell Supply will make your day better, visit www.chadwellsupply.com/difference.
Okay, thank you and welcome back to 8 Stories, a multifamily media network production. So our first story today is an interesting one. So I put a post. I don't know if you're familiar with. There's most of the social media platforms have some version of apartment management or property management, all these different titles that'll tell you real life in the apartment management space. And so I was curious about what people were spending for social media, for moving gifts. So I posted a question on an apartment management Facebook page. I won't say which one. And the first answer I got was, I give them a place to live, and that's all the gift they're going to get from me.
Wow. That is a wild answer. That's not what I was hoping for or expecting.
My goodness. Yeah, that gave me, I think my mouth literally dropped open. Like you posted that with your name on the internet. Yeah. And it surprises me because there's a lot of people who sort of have that attitude. But two thoughts came to me. And the first is, if you're somebody in the apartment industry and you're looking for social media groups that will really help you with thorny problems or help you grow your career, find another group. If you find a group where all they want to do is trash their properties, their residents, their bosses, that is not a place to grow your career. That may feel good in the immediate aftermath of some awful situation you've had to deal with, and there may be a place for that, but truthfully, you want people who are going to challenge you to think differently so that you can grow in your career. So that was the first thought. And the second was, if you've got a property manager in your competitive set and that's their attitude, you can set yourself up to immediately be the leader of the market just by treating your residents and your customers with a lot more thought and respect than that. What do you think, Jennifer?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that although our industry can be very taxing as a property manager, right? It's exhausting. I still think that we still need to help each other out because it's exhausting, right? And try to find the positive things in making sure we do have the support to help grow because it can be hard and can be difficult, and there's a lot of things that we, in the industry deal with, from residents to staff to employees to all that. But anywhere that you can seek positive is always going to help you in the hard work that we do. So I think you mentioned this before, but I think we have the opportunity to really set ourselves apart here by being a leader, right? And I've always said, even to my kids or myself, is put yourself in the positive corner. When you sit yourself in the negative corner and around negativity, that kind of breeds and it kind of duplicates and puts you down in that tornado. Where if you're with the positive and seeking what is good that's happening, you can change your mindset from that perspective.
I love that perspective of putting yourself in the positive corner because you're right. It is a hard job. The on-site property manager job is one of the hardest jobs in this industry. That's why
Yeah,
it's so important that you find people who can help lift you up.
yeah,
There are always going
exactly.
to be people who want to do the trash talking and call your girlfriend and tell her the crazy day you had, but ultimately surround yourself with people who really want to help you and who will give you good answers to your questions. It took a couple of responses before anyone gave me an actual answer. So speaking of that, I'm going to go to floor number 2 now. The second story, and that is to return to this. What do we think is the appropriate amount that property should spend on moving?
Oh, this is a dicey one. I feel like this is so many perspectives are out there, right? I know you have some numbers to share. I think that we've been doing move-in gifts for a long time in this industry. I think that the quote unquote fun of like a plunger or toilet paper is very old school, right? Like that's just to be given. It kind of goes back to my theory of it used to be luxury pools. Well, everybody has a pool, so it's not luxury anymore, right?
Right.
So when you do something for so long, it's not special anymore. From that move-in gift perspective. So I I have so many levels of opinions here because ultimately, when somebody moves in, it shouldn't just be a move-in gift and a one-time opportunity, right? They are moving in for the long term. They're spending, 2/3, I think, right, about the money that they income of what they collect from a paycheck. This is more than just a spot to sleep.
Yeah.
So I think what was it? What was the average about 2 decades ago? What was the average per move-in
Two
gift?
decades ago, the average two-bedroom rent for a year, if you took it all in a year, was only around $10,000. So
Woo.
maybe the $5 per move-in gift was the threshold. But those days are so long gone, they don't bear any resemblance where we are today. Because today, a one bedroom is more than double what a two bedroom was
Woo.
then. So if a single person is going to move in and spend between $22,000 and $24,000 in that first year to live with you, it seems really appropriate to make that move in a really memorable experience by doing something that is unexpected. So I do.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
mean,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I was doing the math because if it's now double at 22,000, right? And let's just say the 10,000 is $5, and so that's double the amount you're spending. So you're really only saying that $10. I mean,
I
but
don't.
that's it. I don't know what the number is. I don't know if you can really quantify, but I think it's more about the experience or the feeling, right? That they are feeling a part of something. And when you think about it, they just moved. It's a lot of work, a lot of energy,
A lot of
um,
expense.
a lot of expense, and for a community to give to a resident is going to be a lasting impression on how they feel, whether they write a review, whether they want to renew, whether they, I don't know what they think of who they're going to tell that they lived in this great community and send a referral. So, am I mistaken? Did your daughter just move and get a really good move-in gift?
She did just move, and it's a nice mid-rise community. And a two-bedroom apartment there would be around $30,000 a year. So we're comparing a one bedroom to a two back in the day. And she happens to live at a property, and there is an AMC theater like a block from where her new property is. And so they gave her this beautiful move-in gift, and it had a $25 AMC gift card, which was she's new to that community. It's nice to ground her into some of the things that you can do around there. And some like goodies, popcorns, candy, that kind of thing, and a beautiful handwritten note. Oh, a keychain that was not just a throwaway plastic keychain, a really nice engraved keychain. And then it looked like you had paid somebody who does calligraphy for a living, but it was a leasing agent who wrote her this beautiful note, called out her dog by name, how happy we are to have you and Barkley move into our community. And it was just a lovely experience on move-in day to have this thing that everybody who came in said, "Oh, yeah, what is that?" Like even the movers asked about this big display that was on the island waiting for her. So that was just one recent example that I saw. But I think that there's so much, even much more that can be done at a lower budget point, right? You don't have to be a gift card. You could find a way to do an exchange with that theater or with some other vendor in or supply somebody out in the marketplace who would give you a discount but offer a better experience for the resident, whether that's a local pizza joint or there's a lot of ways you can go about it. But what comes to mind?
I tend to kind of go in the thought of personalization, right? We continuously talk about personalization, even from their experience as a prospect, right? They want personalization from the tour, from even before they move in. So why not carry that through and finding out something about them? And we may have talked about this before in another episode, but when they go to move in, maybe ask them top three things. What are your favorite things to do? What is your I don't know, get to know them, right? And pick something from there in some way, shape, or form. And again, I do like the movie gift because they are stressed out and working a lot. So to go and relax for an hour and a half as a nice way also to think about, hey, how much work that they've actually provided or had to do, right, to move in there. So kind of
Right.
relaxing and watching a movie. But I think personalization and local opportunities to get folks, around into the area are great ways. But I do think we have opportunities that I think we've come far, but I think we have more to go when it comes to creating that great experience for new residents.
Yeah, it'd be nice if our software allowed us an easy way, like a check the box way to say which things did the customer say they were most interested in, so that you could have that as a memorial when it's time for them to move in. Because it might be 2, 3 months later that they actually move in. So a place to store that information so you can make a personalized gift.
Yeah, I actually beg there's probably some suppliers out there that I can even think of off the top of my head that part of their move-in idea should be maybe a little quick form. What do you enjoy, right? And it doesn't have to be about the moving gifts, but you learn about your resident. And I'm kind of
Right.
going off on a tangent here, but like you learn about your resident about resident events, right? On like maybe what they like to do that you can incorporate over the next year. Maybe that's another story we can kind of talk about in the future. But any personalization, I think, is the way to go.
Yeah, I think you're right. We'll tackle it in a future episode, sort of the ways to make a big impact at different places in the resident journey. And they don't all have to be budget busters. What they have to be is thoughtful.
That's good. Yeah, for sure.
All right, I'm going to move us up to story 3. And this has to do with, I don't know about you, but this has been the hottest early summer and I don't know how long. It came in hot and it stayed hot.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that I worry about this time of year is hydration.
Mhm.
Our service team members are out on the property working on air conditioners in the worst condition because if the air conditioner's out, you've got a crisis. And so I think it's really important that we make hydration something that we are very intentional about for our maintenance folks, for our people in the office who are out showing apartments, touring the grounds, for any vendor or courier that comes into the office, that we're constantly offering ice water, cold water, if you have the budget, a supply of hydrating drinks to people in this season. And it really makes a difference. The heat is relentless. And it's one of the ways to take care of each other that doesn't, it's not a budget buster.
So you got me thinking on the hydration. Personal note on that is I'm trying to drink more water because yes, you're right, it's hot and hydration. I also think this kind of the entice back into the move-in gifts. I think that yes, I love the idea of water in your shop. It's cold. I think also there's nothing I want to say wrong, but to think about you if you're in the office of having that on your card or bringing that with you to your maintenance guys and instead of having them come to you. But along the lines of hydration and move-in gifts, again, it's a very small amount. Yeti cups, everybody loves them. Hydro flasks, whatever the Stanley, whatever the latest is, right? But they're like $25, and if you get them in bulk, it's even cheaper. But if you were to get some great water bottles with your property's logo on it, put that as part of your move-in gift, right?
Okay.
Or maybe it's for the month of, hey, stop on by and in the office and get one of these and stay hydrated, right? And again, it also comes to you as a branding for your community when somebody is out using the water bottle. And because it is well quality, they're going to use it. And then your
Right.
community's name's going to be out there wherever your residents are. Or maybe you offer something of this from hydration during pool time. Just because they're in the pool doesn't mean they don't need hydration. So I think you're right, from vendors to landscapers. My neighbor always leaves drinks out for the UPS guy during the hot summertime, as well as snacks. But I think there's opportunities from the employee side as well as even incorporating some of that hydration aspect for the residents.
I have a neighbor who even puts out ice water in dog bowls. And so that anybody walking their dog can enjoy a little drink.
I love that.
I think that yeah, I love the idea of water bottles, and especially if you do high quality ones and they've got your name on them, that is going to be a gift that keeps on giving anytime somebody is using them, uh, or if people just see it out and about. That is going to be the thing that stands out in people's minds as, oh yeah, that belongs to so and so.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that that's a great idea for a moving gift, and it works well with this time of year.
Yeah, for sure.
Keep drinking your water out there, folks. Stay hydrated, and let's move on to story number 4.
Chadwell Supply is the proud sponsor of Multifamily Media Network. Chadwell Supply is the largest privately owned MRO supply company and is committed to the multifamily industry. They deliver orders the next day from local warehouses across the United States. Chadwell Supply offers valuable resources such as maintenance training, a dedicated renovations team, and procurement platform assistance, ensuring multifamily properties operate more efficiently. Now, by partnering with Chadwell Supply, they'll help communities stand out in an increasingly competitive market. So learn more at chadwellsupply.com/difference.
Jennifer, I really hope that you have some really great thoughts on this because I'm wondering about model apartments. Do you think with all of the tours that are out there, virtual tours, virtual floor plans with furnishings, how
Oh,
important do you think physical models are today?
oh man, this is a great, great question. So much so that I think we should do a poll and get some feedback. But I would say, man, I just think this is what comes to mind when you ask me this. I think that everybody operates differently, right? I'm a visual person personally. I need to see things, right? You saying to me, "Oh, I could fit a queen in here." I have a hard time with that, right? Like that's like saying you have 3 feet when you're backing up your car. I still have a hard time with that,
Yeah, what does that
right?
mean?
So, right, exactly. So I think for some people it is inspiring and to see that visually. I think for some others it may not be important. So I think that there's a way to kind of maybe meet in the middle. Because I think sometimes people do need to see how their furniture could fit. I also think that, and perhaps there's software out there that I don't know about, but if you were to walk into a model and there's some kind of device, I'm getting probably futuristic, where you could put your furniture in that room so you see your furniture and you can kind of move it around while you're standing in this space. So you could see your own furniture in there. So I don't know. I would say 50%, right? I think that it's great when you're online. I know there's a lot of virtual ones where you can like just drop in furniture and have that fun game. But I do think, at least for me particularly, going to an apartment and seeing some is great. Maybe more so in the living room than the bedrooms because you can probably picture where the bed would go.
Right.
I don't know, I'm a 50-50 kind of answer, I guess, on that one.
I
It's
do
been a minute.
wonder that after a year or so, you might look at your stats as a property and say, wait a minute, 80% of our leases are coming from people that never tour a model.
Right.
And
Yep.
maybe there is a case to be made for it's better to close the model and have the revenue than to have a permanent model sitting there. On the other hand, if that's not the case, if the internet's driving them in but not closing them, then that may be an argument for keeping it. But it's something I think will be a conversation more and more in the future.
Yeah, and I would say that, once you said that, it made me think of, I think most people right now want to see the actual apartment they're going to live in, right? They want to see the true, let's call it for transparency, and, what does that really look like? So is it worth taking and moving furniture for a model, or having a model if they're really, to your point, not really seeing it? Is it necessary? And what is the cost to keep that furniture right in there? Now, I don't think that there's anything wrong with using that as a closing technique, right? Not saying you have to have a couch in there, but there
Right.
is always the old school of, you have some shower curtain and a rug, and it's like, oh, this apartment's yours, and you get that, right? Not
Right.
saying you have to do that from the couch perspective, but it'd be interesting to kind of hear from other folks. What does the data say, right? What do the people really end up leasing with, whether that's with furniture or without furniture?
Well, I'd like for our audience actually to tell us in the comments, what are your thoughts on keeping a model? Do you have one? Does it get a lot of use? Uh, is there anybody who's given up on their model and are going without a decorated model to lease their apartment? So tell us what you're doing. We'd love to learn about what's happening out in the marketplace. So this show wouldn't be possible without our sponsors. We're going to take another quick break to hear from today's sponsor. All right, so I'm going to take this one because you might have an inkling that I love this so much. My daughter and I are huge fans of women's gymnastics. I have been since I was a little girl. The first female gymnast I remember was Olga Corbett, and then Nadia Comaneci, and like just Yeah, I've been in love with it since childhood. So this year, the most amazing thing ever. So everyone knows Simone Biles is the best, certifiably the best gymnast. She's the most decorated gymnast, period, male or female, of ever. And she had a really hard time back in Paris. I mean, back in Japan. So she's really excited for the upcoming Olympics. But they just named the female team. Simone Biles, of course, Suni Lee, Jordan Childs, and Jade Carey are all returning Olympians. You have 4 out of 5 on the team have been in the Olympics before. That is an amount of just grounding that you can't get without having had that experience. Because until you're on the floor of the Olympics, you have never really seen the pressure, the energy, all the lighting, all the cameras that you're going to get in that kind of experience. And then the only one who's not is a 16-year-old who doesn't even know how to drive yet. And she's the former junior national champion. Her name is Tesley Rivera. So all this to say, I'm super excited that that the Olympics are just around the corner. But what happened to Simone, I think, plays a little bit of a role in what we talked about here today about taking care of our mental health. And people call it a mental health issue because it's not a syndrome, it's not a disease. But what happens is when you get this thing called the twisties, which I think is the most ridiculous name ever, but when that happens, you cannot tell where you are in the air and where the floor is. And Simone has 5 certified skills in the code of points named after her because she does tricks that no one else can do. So if she's in the middle of one of these impossible tricks and doesn't know where the floor is, it can be deadly. You can easily break your neck by landing wrong because you don't know where you are in the air. And when that happened, she and her coach moved to an offsite gym and they worked it for days trying to get her well enough to get back into the Olympics. So she made her point that she would come back. She's 27 years old. That is senior citizen for an Olympic female gymnast. And so I love the heart that she said, look, that is not the end of my story. And she's back with a bang. In the Olympic trials, she was 2.5 points ahead of anyone else. And why that is relevant is all the other 4 were within like 0.1 point of each other. So she is that far ahead. She actually has tricks that are so difficult that they have to not score them as highly as they should. Not because she can't execute them, but because they don't want other gymnasts trying to do it to get the points when they aren't ready to do it and they could really get injured. So, okay, I'm not going to keep banging the drum, except for there's something to be said for not giving up, for not letting your failure be your story, rewriting your own story. And she did it through grit, through drive. It wasn't just, I'm going to do better. It was in the gym every day, doing the hard work and proving that her story wasn't over yet. And so I think each one of us, if you've ever lost a job, if you've ever been terminated or been laid off, or you didn't get the promotion, or you got it and they had to tell you weren't quite ready for it. If any failure you face in your career, it is up to you to decide how you're going to write your story.
So I'm a huge gymnastics fan. We can save that for our one own episode later. Maybe do 8 stories on the Olympics. But I will say that the last piece here about writing your own story, I literally just posted on LinkedIn this past week of kind of reflecting on every stepping stone has been looking back has been very interesting and placed, right? So to your point of like, you can write your own story, you take the next step and you determine what that looks like. And then you kind of look back and you're like, wow, that's been amazing, and how that all kind of aligned. So I'm 100% on board with you regarding not only the gymnastics in what she's done, but kind of taking the determination and being able to say that even within multifamily, right? We come up with struggles, we come up with detours and everything, and it's not easy, even sometimes looking for a new opportunity, going from different position, because it's not typical that a leasing agent might go to an assistant manager, or assistant manager might go to a manager, right? But you can write your own story. So lots of cool things to keep motivated, throughout the rest of this year.
Well, I have certainly had my share of failures, and it would be very easy to just sort of feel like the whole world is pointing at you and talking about what a failure you are. For the most part, nobody cares about what happened to you years ago. They care about what you're doing today, and you're so in charge of that piece of it. So I
That's
just
right.
use Simone Biles' story as a way. Listen, I'll never be the most decorated gymnast in the world. I have accepted that that is my lot in life. But I so admire what she's done, and I hope that she just knocks it out of the park in the upcoming Olympics. I got to
Love
see
that.
her in person when
Oh,
she
very cool.
yes, on my birthday when they came through Atlanta on the gold tour.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. Yep.
yeah, my daughter and I were on the front row and got to see all the. Now they don't do all the tricks they do in the Olympics because they would kill their bodies if they did that night after night. But they did a
For
ton of
sure.
routines though, and movements. It was a lot of fun. All right, so I guess we can't stay in the Olympics forever, but maybe we will have that
A
as
special
a
episode.
whole episode because it sounds like we could talk about it. We will do a deep dive after the Olympics. So we're going to move up to what floor are we on now? Let's see.
Let's see. 6.
This, oh yes, floor number 6. This is the one about I moved my thing, and so now I'm just sort of rambling.
Oh
This,
no, we've got the deep culture, right? I think we've got
yes.
a story we talked a little bit about here of, what is that? What could that look like in our industry?
So this year, I had 2 relatives who spent a significant amount of time in 2 different hospital systems, and it doesn't matter where I am in the world. I'm always paying attention to how culture seems to live or not live in an organization because it's on every pamphlet, it's on everything as far as their branding. But I always look for evidence of the culture being deeply embedded. So to me, that happens whenever I see staff members at every position really doing that bit of extra care that sort of defines what their culture is. So in one of the hospitals, they ask every time either they would call you to ask what you wanted for your next meal off the menu, or if you called them, they answered the phone, room service, how can I help you? The hospital cafeteria referred to itself as room service.
Love that.
And the food was actually, I didn't eat the food, but my husband said the food was exceptional. He was blown away by how good the hospital food was. And I've never heard anybody say that ever in my
No.
life. And the other one thing that stuck out to me is every time the janitorial staff would come just to empty the trash, sweep the floor, they would always softly knock on the door and say, "Is now a good time for me to come in?" Like, that's so respectful that you might be in a moment that it wasn't a great time. And though I never remember us saying no, it just made me feel like, hey, they recognize that having somebody in the hospital is a really hard thing and that it can have really delicate moments that don't need to be interrupted.
And a couple of things come to mind thinking of those experiences. One, if you're looking to lead into culture, check out Bill Nye leading your culture
Yes.
podcast. He is part of our network, which he has amazing tips on culture. The other thing that comes to mind specifically is that these folks may not know exactly what's going on to those folks that are in the hospital, but they are empathetic to that. And I take that into the respect of employees and multifamily. We
Yes.
don't always know what's happening to our on-site team members if you're in corporate, or you don't know exactly what's happening to your residents.
Right.
But having that understanding from a culture perspective, I think is key into creating a better culture, a better atmosphere, right? From that perspective. So I personally think culture it should be a number 1, number 2, and it elevates and kind of streams down through your organization. So yeah, I would say just kind of leading on that is Bill Nye does a great job talking about culture and establishing what that should look like.
And it's so important when it is throughout an organization. Not only because then it becomes really sticky, right? Sticky in a good way.
Yeah.
When every employee sees other employees acting in alignment with the culture, then those who are outliers really start to stand out.
Exactly.
The same way in our business, I won't name names, the person who said, I'll give them a place to live and that's all the gift they're getting, that attitude becomes an outlier if the rest of the organization is in alignment with the culture. And
Yep.
then it becomes something to be managed differently.
Yeah.
But anyway, just having had this experience, most of us go a long, long time without being at the hospital. And I just had this prolonged amount of time where I was at the hospital. it was an opportunity to observe that. I know you've had a little bit of ER time recently, so I don't know what you've observed.
Yeah, I would say most of that's been on the positive side as well, and mine was in this with my little kiddos. So, you know, just seeing the care and empathetic aspect goes a long way for sure.
Yeah. Well, the hospital, which is a very large and very complex institution that they have to manage a million different things in different departments. And if they can have culture that becomes true and deep throughout their organizations, that feels like it's a very achievable thing for property management operations
Yeah,
or any of our supplier partners to really make culture real.
love that for sure.
Absolutely. So we're going to move on now to floor 7, I believe, and that is something that Steve Wunsch posted recently on LinkedIn, and he said relationships are multifamily currency.
That's true. Very true.
What's your experience of that?
It kind of leads me back to what I shared a little bit before, but part of the post that I posted was, you know, is all the leading steps of stepping stones, but that is also based on right the relationships in multifamily, right? And so my motto is real, authentic, kind, honesty. And this industry is very large, hence we had 13,000 plus people at the Apartmentalize conference, but yet very small, right? I couldn't turn the corner without somebody saying, "Hey, Jennifer," right? And so to your point, I think it's very important to be true to who you are and your reputation and how you do business and how you interact with others. Is very important.
It is. And I think it comes down to how we engage with other people. Are we honest? Are we our authentic and true selves? Because people will, the very best mask that you might put on is not good enough to fool people into thinking you're someone you're not. So it's so important that you really do the work on yourself and that you show up in a true and authentic and candid way. And candid doesn't mean cruel. It doesn't mean cutting and biting. It just means you've asked me for honesty, and with all of the love and care in my heart, I'm going to give it to you as gently but as honestly as I can. I'm going to speak to you with candor because I respect you, and that's what you're asking from me, is to tell you. If somebody comes to me and says, and you've had this experience, I know, not that long ago, and somebody comes and says, "Tell me why is this not working?" It doesn't do you any good to just pump them up. You're great. You're excellent. You're going to get there. They need to know what's really not working. So that bit of candor, I think, is really important.
Absolutely. Yep. I would totally agree with you with that. Yep. Very important.
So we're going to close out on the 8th story with something I read in a Resident 360 blog. And it was the 9-word email.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
It was one of I don't even remember how many different ideas they had, but this was pretty deep in there. But it caught my attention because I thought, how many times I'm a writer, and so I tend to be wordy. How many times do we get a 9-word email? And I'm not talking about a response where you simply say something brief. I'm talking about an initiated email where what you send out has 9 words or somewhere in that 8 to 10 word. And the whole point of it was like brevity. Don't make people read a million words from you. They used it especially for like calling on cold prospects. So a way to send an email that says, "Hey, are you still looking for a studio? I've got one available." And there's a click, a way to click through. But that recipient doesn't have to waste a lot of time. They can quickly know if they want to engage with this email or not. So I thought that would be a fun thing to practice.
I love that. Like, it kind of takes my old school theory when I was always training on-site team members of like, don't reiterate everything that's already been seen on the website, right? Don't reiterate everything they already know. They don't want to have to fish through the email to find what they need. Otherwise, they're going to surpass it. Everybody's doing multiple things. You're texting, you're emailing, you've got 9,000 tabs open right on your computer.
Right.
Like, so again, to your point earlier, don't be cruel and rude, but you can still be short and simple and, share the information or ask the questions. But I kind of take that perspective and a little bit deeper of just the 9-word email. I'm going to try that in some things. I love that concept. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, a quick reminder email to somebody can be a simple one too. Not here's the other 50 things I told you, but hey, did you remember this thing?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, let us know what you think about that. Is a 9-word email a tactic that you would try at your properties to try and warm up some cold prospects? Anything else that you've heard today that rings something you want to try or that you think is crazy? We'll take the good and the bad, but do us a favor, leave a comment, give us a thumbs up, and we'll be back to talk with you again next week.
Thank you again to Chadwell Supply for sponsoring this episode. Chadwell Supply delivers unforgettable service with next day delivery, online and in-person maintenance training, procurement platform, assistance to make your ordering simple. Visit chadwellsupply.com/difference to learn how Chadwell Supply will make your day better.